Te au take I roto te atanga ko Alex Herman Ed Herman, ngā Herman, mera tamai tō tātou tuanga o te Seabed Minerals Authority. Te apai mai te tai au updates no tātou I roto te popongi o. At this time, folks, Alex Herman and Ed Herman, not related. Yes, from the Seabed Minerals Authority with some updates. Kia rana to the two of you this morning.
Kia rana, popongi mānea ki a koe, William, e tō tātou I te tangata. Good morning to you this beautiful day, and good morning also to our listeners.
You want to say good morning?
Kia rana, morning, William, and morning tātou tanga, tātou aronga te akarongo mane te tātou rātio. Kia rana.
Okay. Remember, you need to speak up louder, okay? So I don't have to push the mics up and pick up the motorbikes and all that going past. Alrighty. Well, I think tia korua te programu I te popongi, and then I think me katau, I put some huianga ki o korua, if that's all right. So I'll let you two go for it this morning.
Great. Thank you, Matariki, William. Well, this morning we wanted to come in and share some updates with our listeners, particularly on the successful government consultations that were held with our diaspora in New Zealand last week. These consultations were led by the Prime Minister. They were supported by the Kaumaiti Nui and Bishop Pere, along with SBMA and M5 officials. Now, the purpose of these government consultations were to speak on two issues. The first was to provide updates on Seabed Minerals development, and the second was also to provide updates to our people on the upcoming 60-year celebrations next year. So the objectives of these government consultations were to share those updates with our Cook Islands people and to hear their views and their feedback. And in particular on the Seabed Minerals side, a lot of effort has gone into the development of this sector over the last few decades actually. And in recent years, we've gained so much during our exploration phase. So for us, it was exciting to be able to share those updates because, as you may already be aware, we've been doing consultations throughout the Cook Islands, throughout all of our pāinua, throughout Rarotonga, but this was the first time that we had that opportunity to go out to our diaspora, and this was the first time that a lot of them were actually hearing about what we're doing in the Seabed Minerals space. So really, really successful. I might hand over to Ed to share a little bit more in terms of the overall insights and feedback that we received. But to cover off the overview, the 5 cities that we visited were Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch, Dunedin, and of course the 16th island of the Cook Islands, Tokoroa. So for Seabed Minerals, these consults have been years in the making. Now that we'd covered off our Cook Islands, those were the next places that where we wanted to engage with our people. And it comes back to government's commitment, which is in the development of this sector to bring our people along on the journey, and that includes our diaspora.
Right. Okay, Ed.
Me mua kia rana William, I ka komiti ka koe, no te tuato no mātou kia te mei, tapu e rongo tō rātio, kia tuku tātou kārere, o tātou updates ere. Me tā te commissioner e tutua maira, e mātou ki tātou tumu mana koa kia, e te no te akoranga te Seabed Minerals. Me mua kia tuku te akomiti kanga tātou itstangata I Aotearoa nei. Pūma ana te ngākau Māna ana tō tātou teanga ki Aotearoa. Tō tātou itstangata. Mataora te kite o ki tō tātou Prime Minister, e tō tātou itstangata, e tō tātou officials, te o government, te kaumā iti, e te ngā kuru pautoro kia. O te religious, the traditional leaders, e tō tātou government. So they were very happy to see us, and tā rātou e karangamai, ka hata I nei, ka tēmea te tātou government, kia tūta I updates e remitira. So very appreciative, very thankful, very happy to see us. So that was a big learning and a takeaway from that for our delegation. Throughout the cities, the 5 cities that we visited, 5 cities in 5 days, and 5 consultations. So that was an achievement in itself, and the feedback was generally very positive. Very happy to know that our people out there have been waiting, have been very interested, very eager to hear from us and our government on this industry. So the feedback was the main feedback. Thank you. A lot of appreciation to the Prime Minister and the government for reaching out and making the effort to visit them and give them information and provide the updates.
All right. Well, while all of that was happening on day 1, back here in the jungle, there were some people complaining about their logos appearing on one of your slides. And of course, when you read the slide properly, it says stakeholders. And of course, stakeholders covers every aspect of our community. So did you get any of that feedback while you were up there?
Well, it was certainly circulated widely on social media and picked up by the local media here. So yes, we did get the memo, and to provide some context, our objective with the presentations is to give our people all of the information relevant to what's happening in the sector. And I don't think people quite appreciate how much information that is. It's so much. We covered off so many issues because our tō tātou its tangata, they're interested in different issues. Some are more interested on the environmental side, some are more interested on governance, social issues. So our presentation overall is 50 plus slides. It's at least an hour to That's
a big number of slides.
Yes, and it's really coming back to our responsibility where we want to share this information with our people. We want to make the most of this opportunity while we're in front of them. So within all of those slides, we had information in terms of giving them an idea of the stakeholders, the sector. So we had a slide. We had one slide listing out all the relevant government agencies that have a role to play, because it's not just the Seabed Minerals Authority. And then we had another slide which listed out all of the key stakeholders involved in the sector, just so that people have that understanding. It's not just government. There's all these other stakeholders, our people, the advisory committee, the licensing panel, the NGOs, the industry. So all of those stakeholders we listed. And as you pointed out, one of those stakeholders took issue with us using their logos. When that issue was raised, we immediately removed their logos out of respect for them not wanting their logos to be used. And in our presentations afterwards, because this was the first consultation in Auckland where that issue was raised, we highlighted specifically that certain stakeholders have different views. But it's not for us to speak on other stakeholders' behalf. We're not there to speak on behalf of the industry or the NGOs. We are there to represent the government and to engage with our people to get their views. So yes, that did happen, and we adjusted our slide so that that would address the concerns raised by one of our NGOs.
Okay. So did that have a rub off on the community at all?
I'm not too sure. I mean, there were Cook Islanders that are affiliated with the NGOs that attended the consultations, and I believe that they raised that issue again. I think one member got a bit confused and thought that we were still using the logos, but we had already changed that. I think what's key though is the engagement on the concerns, the issues that they had. And one of the key issues that were raised by NGO representatives or people affiliated with our NGOs is that concern around needing to have the information, the science and data to be able to make an informed decision.
Yeah.
And this is something where in the Q&A, we actually highlighted that government agrees with that issue and that concern. And it's not just government, it's all the key stakeholders involved, including industry. Nobody wants to allow this to go ahead unless we have the science and information to make that informed decision on whether it's safe to do so. So I think that's probably the important point to pull out of this, which is that key concern that has been raised by NGOs during our consultations is a concern that we all share. And it's something that we can look at in terms of working together on. Yeah.
Okay. Are they all mono? No. Okay. So, and then just staying with just this aspect of our talk this morning, in terms of the actual visit to Aotearoa, now you're saying it's engagement to be inclusive of our people living outside of our reef. There's this talk, consultation, promotion concept. So what is it actually, in terms of what you went to do? Was it a consultation, or was it a promotion, or was it sharing updates and things like that? So what is it? Because people have different perceptions, and they can actually impact on their perceptions.
Certainly.
Could impact on what you're aiming to do.
Yes, certainly, William. And to be clear, the objective with these consultations was twofold. Number one, it was awareness raising, and it was sharing with our people all of the updates in terms of what's happened here. On the law side, the regulatory side, we have worked over the last 2 decades to put in place all of these laws to ensure that activities that happen with seabed are done properly, and we have the laws to enforce. That was an important update to share with people. Also, sharing the new science that's being gained. That's an important update. So that was one of the key objectives. One is to update our people. Second is to hear from them, to hear their views, because what we shared is the whole purpose of these consultations is that it's two ways. And a lot of how we've developed the sector, a lot of that has been influenced and shaped by the feedback that we've received from our people in terms of, are you covering off these issues? We think you need to look into these issues more. We actually take that feedback in, and it comes back into our policy and planning. So those are the two objectives for these consultations. And if certain stakeholders want to view that as promotion, well, that's their decision. But
Right.
That's how we have approached these consultations. One, to raise awareness so that our people are aware of the key issues, and secondly, to hear from them to get their views.
So in terms of the updates, I trust those that are anti are being covered as well in your awareness aspects of the promotion or the consultation. In terms of you're bringing people up to date, it's an awareness thing. So there must be some, well, I guess, acknowledgement that there are certain groups in the country that are not in favour of mining, seabed mining.
Yes, we're quite open about that, and I think there's not as much as a need for us to explicitly say that, because I think people in the Cook Islands are well aware in terms of the views and perspectives of stakeholders.
Yeah.
But I do think it's a little bit more nuanced than that, and You get that from some of the comments that we hear from our environmental NGOs, and when I hear the concerns that they raise, I can see that there is some mutual interest there as far as the concerns that government also have, that the industry also have. So yeah, as I said before, there's an opportunity there for us to work together more.
Yeah.
And that's something that we have been doing in terms of starting to have more discussions with those other stakeholders. And hopefully we can start to line up more meetings so that we can share a bit more on our concerns and see how we can work forward together.
Yep.
Because ultimately, you peel back all of the hats and the labels. At the end of the day, we're all Cook Islanders here. We all care about what happens in our oceans, in our marae moana. So, I'd love to continue to work together so we can find solutions and develop things that best benefit our country and our people.
Right.
And thank you, William. And if I can just add, I think it's important. You've already highlighted the issue around the NGOs and their views and being maybe misrepresented. So, we're very careful not to speak too much to their views, because they have a wide range of views and concerns and issues. So it's important that we are not misrepresenting NGOs. As we've already mentioned in the slide, it was just about highlighting that they are a key stakeholder for us.
Right.
And we don't want to. The NGOs have their views and they have their own programs on how they communicate those.
Yeah,
And
they
it's
have
very
a
important. It's very important we don't try to speak on their behalf.
Yeah, they have their own style. Yeah. Okay, so let's look at the centres then. Okay. So Auckland was the first one. What did you take out of Auckland? And let's go through all the cities that you went to, because I'm sure those that are listening online and also those here that are from those cities would like to know the sort of thinking from those different communities.
Yeah, sure. Well, Auckland, as expected, was by far our largest. I think we had over 200 people attend, so we were quite pleased with the number of people that came. There's some feedback for us in terms of any future meetings is, I don't know if the organisers in each of the cities quite appreciated how much time we needed for our presentations. So we weren't able to get started with the presentations right away. There was the Kiriti Marotai.
Yeah, the tuoro, yeah.
Yes, so that did delay the start of the presentations. And all of that had consequences in terms of then how much time we had for Q&A.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of interest in the Q&A, and we weren't managing that. That was managed by our MC, but we could see that there were others in the room that wanted to have that opportunity to ask their questions, that didn't have that opportunity. So that was unfortunate and a learning lesson for us in terms of what can we do to improve on that. But overall, as Ed highlighted, the feedback that we received, by and large, was the appreciation for one, making the effort to share all this information. And then there were also the concerns. There were some people that wanted to know more about environmental issues or governance issues. So we were able to take that opportunity to then respond and to share what's happening in those spaces. There's some of our local Cook Islanders or people that used to live here, now living in Aotearoa, that came up and asked their questions. There was Liam Kokoua. I actually really appreciated his questions and just the respectful engagement. That's something that we quite appreciated during the consultations. So, we don't always agree on issues, but as is the Cook Islands way, we raise these issues with respect. So that we quite appreciated. But certainly lots of engagement with Auckland. If we had to do it over again, we'd do some things slightly differently to give our people more of an opportunity on the Q&A side. That was certainly a learning curve for us with Auckland. Yes.
How many questions did you feel outside of seabed minerals business?
So as we said, there were the 2 agenda items, but given how much time got taken up with seabed, both presentation and Q&A, there wasn't as much time to get to the 60-year celebration. So that's why the MC had to cut off and move to the 60-year agenda item. And so one theme, and we'll speak to this on the other cities, is these consults went late a lot of the times. So again, another learning for us. And certainly it was a lot for the team, 5 cities in one day, because you're finishing quite late, sometimes 1 a.m. Then you've got to get up first thing in the morning, 6-7 o'clock to catch the next transport out to the next city. So pretty fast and furious, but the team did a great job, I think. Yes, really impressed with our pāmitua as well. Papa Bishop and Papa Komaiti, they were always leading the way with a pep in their step. Meanwhile, I think us younger ones are just, bit tired after day 1, day 2.
Yeah.
And if I could just add, I think I just want to add, not only I think Alex has spoken about Auckland, but me agaro koe te au comments ere a tano ki no te tātou o oire ere I Aotearoa kia. It was the sentiment was always there, very similar, again very appreciative, and I think the biggest learning and the comments we got from our people was, this was timely because they started to listen and hear different things of what the government was doing.
Yeah.
And they even stood up, grabbed the mic and said, "I'm so glad you're here. Ko tēmai koto, ko tuku te tikaanga. He atikai te tikaanga te anganga te rawe nei. I ku garden nei." So they were very clear on that and said, we've been hearing this, hearing that, hearing this, and so forth. Yes, we have information available, but I think we can all agree as a Cook Islands people in a society, the face-to-face is a lot more valuable. You cannot, there is nothing more valuable in terms of engaging with people and communicating your updates and so forth by meeting our people in person. And that's what we've done in Rarotonga and the Pāinua, and it's the same. Our people are we have the same culture, our same traditions, they're just living in a different country.
Yeah.
But thank you.
Well, I guess one of the big things, and I picked this up with Tā Wainerere earlier in the week on his report of his trip to Poneke and holding his workshop for the Achuan community. And it would be the same for the Seabed Minerals Authority tour or roadshow. Is how hungry our people in Aotearoa are for information, what's happening, anything little. Did you pick that up?
Yes, certainly. And I also want to pick up off of what Ed has shared. That was one of the key themes that we got from our people right off the bat in Auckland. One of the papas stood up and he said, "We've been hearing all of this, that, and the other about what's happening, all of this misinformation." He brought it up and he stated it and he said, "So glad that you came here, because before you came, I've been told this, that, and the other about what you're doing." So, we all know that misinformation is an issue. And all the more reason for us to go out and engage directly, because people are hearing information from different sources. Sometimes the information that's being portrayed on social media and in the media is not always accurate. So what we heard from our people is we so appreciate that we get to hear it directly from the horse's mouth. And you're right, William, our people were very interested to hear and understand what's going on back home, in particular with the seabed sector. And they have different interests depending on the different age groups.
Yeah.
So our older Cook Islanders, they will recall back when the discussions on seabed minerals was happening during Papa Arapati's time.
Yeah.
So for them to see the progress And for some where they're like, well, there hasn't been anything happening, but now they can see that actually in the last 2 decades, a lot has happened. That was really interesting for them to hear about. So yeah, it's really for us overall, we're just so pleased with this, with the Diaspora Consults. It's certainly achieved for us what we intended to do. And while you might have other stakeholders, putting out their own perceptions of what happened, for us, because we were there and because we heard the feedback directly from our people, and we also got that feedback in our surveys, we know what a success it was and what a benefit it was for our people to hear that information, gain that new knowledge directly from us.
Right. So in terms of the mandate that you already have here in the back home here in the Cook Islands, were the diaspora able to give you added mandate or support to what's happening in the sector?
Well, they shared their views, and for a lot of people, not all, because we do have some that have the reservations, particularly around environmental issues. But what we received broadly, and Ed can speak to this because they went to all 5 cities, was that support for what the government is doing. That certainly came out in the consultations that I attended.
Yeah.
But again, it's what we've been clear throughout is, while there has been a decision made to develop the sector, there are no decisions made, and there will be no decisions made on whether or not mining or minerals harvesting can go ahead unless we're satisfied that all of the preconditions are met.
Yeah.
So that's an important distinction that needs to be made, that while we are developing the sector, that's happened, that's already decided. There's no decisions yet on the future of this industry, and that really depends on other stakeholders, including the companies that are actually exploring in our waters today.
Right.
Yep, just to support our commissioner and her views and comments, that was very clear and evident, in that our people were very I think very thankful and very impressed in terms of the process and the caution and the way government is moving. There is nothing being rushed, and that was very clear in what we've been doing. We're very aware of that, but that also came from our Cook Islanders overseas. Te akara, the key saying was te akara matatio ne tatu.
Yeah.
That's the key.
Okay. Well, I guess there must be some impact on our people's thinking, or the diaspora thinking, given where New Zealand stands at the moment on the same subject, the same sector, with the Hikoi and the Waitangi treaty issues. How were there any impacts from those things that were happening at the time when you turned up to Aotearoa?
We were wondering about that, especially because the day we were in Wellington was the same day that the Hikoi was taking place. We didn't receive too much feedback or commentary on that connection, but I do think our people, because there's that awareness of what at least the diaspora have that awareness of what's happening in New Zealand, can recognize the differences in terms of what's happening in the Cook Islands, and the way that we are developing the seabed minerals sector. One key thing that they highlighted and that they appreciated was the 3 pillars throughout and within this development. Seeing Ko Maiti Nui, seeing Bishop Tutai Pere, along with our Prime Minister, that gave our people the reassurance that we are doing this together, takitai. So that's a comment, that's a theme that came up quite often, and perhaps it's the distinction in terms of what might be happening in New Zealand.
Right. Okay, yeah, because that is a bit of a tricky one at the moment, I think, in Aotearoa, and our people, our diaspora, will be impacted according to what eventuates with the political scene in New Zealand, and also their stance on seabed minerals activity.
Yes, and I think it's important for people to recognise the differences, and it's something that might be tempting to do, is to compare what is happening in the Cook Islands with what's happening in New Zealand or Papua New Guinea or Tonga or any other jurisdiction. But there's important differences that people need to be aware of. For example, in New Zealand, the development that they're looking at is a couple of kilometres, just a few kilometres away from shore. Compare that to the Cook Islands, and we're talking about, in our waters, all of the licensed activities are happening 100 kilometres or beyond away from our islands. So it's important not to see them as similar projects. You know, each of their projects have their own nuances, have their own issues that need to be managed. So I think for the Cook Islands, our people at least, there's a very high awareness of these issues, and I think that's thanks in part to the efforts to raise awareness, to share the information. And while we're talking about information sharing, just want to highlight our website, sbma.gov.ck. There's lots of relevant resources on there. Please, people are interested in learning more, go to our website. If not, get in touch with the team at the office. We're always happy to hear from our people if they're interested in learning more.
Okay. Is that it for us today? Is there anything else you want to get out?
Well, I'm looking at the time. I think that's
Don't look
probably
at
it for today.
Okay, well, thank you to the two of you for coming in this morning and giving us those updates from the tour of Aotearoa, and you guys can have tomorrow off and rest up.
Yes, still recovering. Brought a cold back from New Zealand, but that's okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much.